Hello everyone, welcome here to another practicing session. A little bit of unusual introduction here because practicing session will start in a few seconds after this introduction. And the reason I'm doing that is because I discovered after finishing the recording of that practicing session, in which I will go for the first time in 8 years, in fact, through Mozart's Adagio of the D major sonata. That's the one we were discussing last week, the first movement, now the Adagio. So that session, the audio was somehow compromised. I don't know what happened, but instead of 50 minutes, the time code in the audio gave 25 minutes. So apparently, Samplitude, the program I'm using, was skipping every second 1 second. So that's kind of weird if you hear that. It's totally unusable. And so not having the main audio signal from the microphones here, I could decide to redo the session, but it's difficult because there is only one moment in which I can go for the first time after 8 years back to that Mozart Adagio, or just using the sound that as it was recorded in camera, which is obviously not the way you are used to hear these practicing sessions, but it's still audible. And since I'm going through the piece, talking and playing as always, the camera is adjusting sometimes a level. I mean, it's what it is. So I decided to have the practicing session online anyway. I'll do my best to figure out how to improve the sound as much as I can, but I thought it was necessary for you to just let you know in this short introduction, because otherwise you would ask questions. What happened with the sound? Why is there so much noise level? We're not used to that. So I apologize for that. I tried to figure out what happened because that is kind of freaking me out. You have to be able to rely on your equipment while recording. Certainly if it's a one-man show technically, so nobody's listening to these sessions while I'm recording. So I need to figure out what happened so that I can be sure it will never happen again. Difficult world, these mixing consoles, so long live the tape recorders, but of course I cannot use a tape recorder for these sessions. So I hope you enjoy this session anyway, and with Mozart's Adagio, looking forward to your reactions. See you soon again, bye! Hello everyone, welcome back to another practicing session here at the clavichord as promised with Mozart. Not Beethoven, Mozart. We are actually rediscovering this beautiful Sonata number 18 in D major, Kapellbezeugnis 576 if I am correct. That's the last sonata Mozart wrote. As I've said in the previous episode, practicing session last week, I have been playing this sonata 8 to 10 years ago, and I had the impression maybe for the clavichord it's a little bit too late of a work. Perhaps Mozart wrote this with the pianoforte clearly in his mind already. During the previous practicing session I came to the conclusion that the tempo was a major issue in making the work also fit for the clavichord, certainly for the first movement. So let's continue that work with the second movement, which is an Adagio. And as I have been sharing this secret, it's not a secret of course, that, you know, these slow movements was a kind of this point of discussion with Lorenz and I for years. I've shown you this email that he sent me November 2019, so that's almost 10 years ago, with all the metronome indications for the sonatas by Mozart by Moscheles, which by the way are not easy to find. But anyway, we have been arguing on the slow movements for years, and the reason was that I was not open for it. I thought I had an argument, I had an opinion, I had some experience in dealing with the issue, but in fact, suddenly, and that happened in 2016, early 2017, I realized that the real problem was that I was actually not looking into the issue. And so it was Mozart, you know the story, the D major sonata, the sixth one, the last one of the Munich sonatas, that Adagio and Andante as well, the variations, last movement, that really changed my mind. And I realized that instead of having an opinion on something that I hadn't tried, I should try it, and not for a week, but for some years. And that moment really changed my mind and my musical life as a musician as well. And so I learned a lot from that. And if I am sometimes, you know, getting responses from people who say, well, this is all nonsense, I initially have a lot of patience, because I know how it works. You think you are giving this double beat theory a chance, but actually, as I've experienced, you're not. And I do also have conversations with people who are open for halving or applying the double beat metronome theory for the fast movements, but not for the slow. Exactly the same thing as I had. And I know it's just a matter of time, because there is no other solution, because the same problems that apply for the fast movements apply for the slow movements. Many slow movements simply become unplayable. And from a musical perspective, it even makes more sense. Now, having said all that, I never ever tried this Adagio in double beat. That's simply something. I went to the Munich sonatas, then I proceeded with Beethoven, and so Mozart. These sonatas, these later sonatas, have not been tried for me, by me in double beat. So we are going now in this small hour, because it's now, let's check, it's 9:10, and we have a meeting with our architect on the studio at 10 o'clock. So I have to finish really at, let's say, 10 to 10. So that gives us about 40 minutes? Yeah. So in this 40 minutes, we're going to try this in double beat for the first time together. At least you're witnessing me trying this for the first time. It's beautiful Adagio, by the way. I've learned from that experience that, and certainly after trying this for a few weeks and months, going through some music that I've played before and that I was rediscovering, was having some troubles with, because that was early 2017, exactly in the time where I recorded for YouTube the Munich sonatas by Mozart. They're all on the channel. Actually, they are on the main playlist. If you go on the home page, you're new to this channel, ? There are some videos, the Mozart Munich sonatas are in there for a reason, because it's very symbolic for me. Those are really the first set of sonatas that I've played 100% in double beat, according to double beat. So that opened my mind, and also I realized that actually the real meaning and feeling and what an Adagio actually represented in that time, at least according to the results, by applying the double beat theory on those movements, that we actually lost the true meaning of that. We lost that feeling of, suddenly those pieces became so deeply emotional, romantic almost, the Munich sonatas especially, that early in history. Yeah, you had Clementi opening that way for new music, technically, but also in terms of composition and expression, really mind-blowing. But Mozart took all of that, absorbed all of that, what was happening in Europe, and actually created a set of sonatas in which he gave so perfectly a representation for what's going on in Europe. This whole idea of romanticism, nature evocation, solitude, being lonely, you know, that those paintings you also had in those days of these large, you know, yeah, you know, the moonlit scenes with landscapes and you know, water and whatever, what have you. So he gave form to that in music, and I learned that, at least for me, I had never experienced that. Most adagios what we hear today are played in what I believe historically was meant for an andante movement. So we will come back on that in future episodes on tempo, where I also will create some playlists on What is an adagio, it's an andante, and how do they relate to each other? It's also for me still a journey of discovery. So let's now find out what this Mozart adagio sounds like in double beat. So I take my trusted metronome up, and we have two metronome numbers, Czerny and modulus. Modulus is somewhat slower than Czerny, but they are on the same scope. So modulus has 8th note 92, Czerny has 8th note 104. So let's start with the slowest modulus. 92. Okay. I'm using my Panasonic camera so I can watch myself. Yeah. I certainly need the time. So that's tuck, 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 tuck. Let me take this metronome because that's as accurate as a digital metronome. That's for the 16th now. So double beat means 1, 2 for the 8th note. So every 2 ticks, one schlag, one beat gives the note value of the metronome equation. That's Anya's phone. She's just working upstairs here, so you'll hear her voice probably also. There we go. So that's something I will do if I'm rethinking a piece, because what happens is that you slowly just adjust your tempo to what you're used to play. But again, this has been so many years that even the music has somewhere disappeared. That's one of the typical things for me. I'm focusing on something and I'm kind of forgetting about what was I doing before. When I then take those things up again, like now this Mozart Sonata, it'll come back very soon, but it's not really there from the first second. So that's interesting also, it gives me a little bit of room to look at it with a fresh eye. So, okay, typically if you play such an adagio for the first time in double beat, sometimes the beginning may seem to be a little slow. And one of the mistakes you can make then, and I made it a lot of times, so I hope by sharing this you won't need to try this out for as long as I did, to learn that once you have a note at the beginning, we typically have developed this feeling of going to the next notes. And this feeling of just connecting those heavy beats, so going forward all the time. You hear musicians say that you have to play according to the bows and the tension of the bow. It's so un-18th century like. The metrical feeling, maybe that's a wrong expression, but it's the heavy beat, light beat. The tension is in itself. So you just wait until the note comes, and then there is a new note. So that works, I think, perfectly. So you have also here a kind of opera setting or Lied setting. So this is a song, someone is sharing a story. And well, this doesn't, for me, I don't know what your reaction is, but for me, first impression is this sounds really normal. I doubt if you ever hear this piece in single beat. Single beat, let's just try it. I'm sorry, Mozart, it's for doing some good work, so let's use that Adagio now. So in single beat, this would sound. So that's really fast. If you then go to Czerny's 104, in single beat, chuck, 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 chuck. And then suddenly when you have the 30-second notes, so 104 is 52 quarter note is a kind of tempo ordinario which is used for the, you know, if you have an Italian tempo word in that time, for the tempo ordinario it would be moderato, it would be allegretto, moderato, allegretto sometimes, but in that range. It's not allegro, it's not andante, it's something in between those. And in fact it's strange that there is not actually a word for that in the Italian tempo word description. So allegretto, allegro moderato, it's even faster a little bit. Moderato certainly is tempo ordinario. But here you have adagio. And adagio, if you roughly said, let's say you have similar notations. In this case you have 30-second notes, that makes the piece a little bit slower. But if you have similar notations, for the sake of the example, you'll have sources, and we'll bring some of those in the future, that say, well, in tempo ordinario, allegretto, in the case of James Carr, for instance, 1828 something, he said that's about a second, that's about the tick of a clock, you know, that's the quarter note equals 60 for an allegretto. And then if you go to adagio, it's the half of that value. If you go to a presto, it's double of that value. So that's a simple framework that actually is quite accurate. But if you then see here Czerny 104 for the 8th note, that would fall into a slow tempo ordinario, not in an adagio. But if we go to the double beat interpretation of the 104, we would have 8th note 52. So 16th note 104, 8th note 52 in the case of modulus 8th note 46. That is exactly according to that framework James Carr describes. But you have others, Hotter Terrace is really important. That's of course 18th century. But the same principles are actually not changing so much over the time of 17th, 18th, even 19th century. So let's agree that we stick to a double beat here. I don't think you will be surprised. Will be surprised by me saying that. It's really early, my fingers feel like cardboard. Hope you don't mind. So that's the modulus tempo. Counting 16s in the beginning. Czerny describes it as well. Adagios do count in 16. Take your time. Let's just continue playing now. Check, okay. I'm sorry, I was looking at my phone. And of course, you make a little bit of ritornello here at the end. You can do that. Not too much. The main tempo beautiful chord. Then we continue. I'm not sight reading. For those of you who are just tuning in, I'm not sight reading. I am actually replaying this piece that I haven't been playing yet for over 8 years. So it's not a performance. It's just a try out. But what is really essential in this style of playing, and it's essential to understand also that if you apply double beat tempi, so let's basically what I think are the tempi that Mozart or Czerny took for that piece. And if it's really Mozart's tempo, it's really interesting to kind of try to reconstruct that context in which you can tell, I mean, approximately if that's close or not. But the important thing is that this was Mozart's tempo and this was Czerny's tempo. That's the really important thing. But if you play according to double beat and you hear people say it's not possible, they don't realize always, if ever, that it's not possible to just take your metronome and apply double beat to a performance that you're not used to play. You have, with change of tempo, and certainly drastic change of tempi, comes a new performance practice. And it has to do a lot with microscopic small elements, but which become so important. Like for instance here on eighth notes, if you have this passage, you have to give that E a kind of like a singer would do so perfectly, and thanks to clavichord, because the clavichord is a great instrument to imitate these kind of vocal expressions, so that string players also have. On the piano that's much harder, but it's still possible. Then you give that with accents. You give that impulse to that sound, but you have to do that. And now, let's quickly check our tempo. And now, also here, he ends that so beautiful with that bow, and the bow articulation C sharp. That's extremely difficult. A singer again can do that so easily. We have always as keyboard players to imitate that. Also here, this B sharp. You want to stand still for eternity there. Of course, that's not possible. But this tempo allows us suddenly to be kind of expressive there, you know. Also here, the left hand on the clavichord. You will not be able to hear it on the recording. And certainly not with these mics, and certainly not through YouTube. But if you would hear that in reality, the way you can make these, it's a string accompaniment that you're imitating here. Soft, but yet very well present. The instrument almost is not producing any decibels here, but you can stand 100 meters away from it and you will hear it, you will perceive it. And there comes then the right hand, so beautiful on top of that. So that And I know I'm contradicting myself 10 years ago, but now I see this passage is so perfect on the clavichord actually. It gives you this possibility. Much piano playing. Nice. Let's just check my tempo. Okay, I'm just going to switch the camera here. It's 25 minutes to be sure that we don't fall out of recording time. Okay, and we're back. So maybe what I would like to do now is actually just play the piece. Again, I'm a little bit sight reading sometimes, and here are weird, not weird, very beautiful chromatic lines, and there is some discussion here. I see whether those notes should be naturals or sharps, but that doesn't matter. I just want to have a feeling of this tempo. And sticking to the modulus tempo, so not to prove something, because yeah, you can imagine what some people would say, yeah, but he went for the fastest, slow tempo, and no, it's not, because I feel comfortable with this. The Germany is there, 104, it will give another character, you can try that as well, but let's stick for a while here to this modulus tempo, and just try it from the beginning. One thing I would share with you now, is if you start playing in this double beat for slow movements, you will oftentimes see that counting for yourself in 16th notes is really helpful. In fact, the metronome implies that. The metronome gives what the German calls the Taktteile. And takt is a synonym for tempo in this case. You have two ways to describe or to translate the term takt, the German term takt. Of course, if you have a discussion with a strong single beat believer, he said takt is always what the English would say bar. That's it. That's the possible meaning of takt. Yes. Actually, you have two meanings of takt. That's the latest one. It comes in the 17th or 18th century. The original meaning of takt is giving the takt, giving the time, giving the taktus, giving the tempo. Takt equals tempo. You even find that in the 19th century in just terminology descriptions. If a conductor gives the takt, gives the time, he doesn't give the bar to the musicians, he gives the tempo to the musicians. So this is a Taktmesser. Read that even in Hummel piano method, in Czerny's piano method, everywhere. This is for composers a Taktmesser. And what that means is that the metronome gives the Taktteile. So the parts of the takt tempo. Remember that video I made on the instructions on using the Melzel metronome. It's 29 minutes or so, but I think it's really worth your time because that gives a clear, what for many single beat believers is the proof for single beat, but if you go line by line in that text, it's all there. That text describes that the metronome gives parts of the intended time, and in fact that's the translation in German of that text. There the German translator rightfully so understands the term time. It translates that by Zeitmaß, which is tempo. So parts of the intended time, you have here eighth note 92, that's the intended time, that's the takt. This is a taktmesser. It measures the takt, it measures the tempo by giving each tick the parts of the intended time, which means here, let it tick, tick, part of the intended time, part of the eighth note. It's as simple as that. And that's the last thing before we try this out. Everything in music history that you read as a kind of mystery and where people jump on because we all love these stories of how would it be has been in history, and it's these mysterious thoughts and connections. It cannot be difficult. A metronome is a simple device, so the solution must be simple by definition. And so it's just tick, tick, tick. Easy then. The point I want to make is you count in 16ths then, which makes your life easier at the beginning. You have to come to a moment where, as a conductor would give time, the conductor gives the beats in the way in the eighth notes, unless it goes much faster. That's a whole other story. There's a separate way of giving time, leading an orchestra, then this device indicates the tempo. There are similarities, but that's for later. Let's now say you start in 16ths, but once you have this feeling, you go in eighth notes, because then you have the movement that allows you to create a little bit of freedom as well. So just let's try this. Oh, I'm in line 2 now. No. Little articulation. You hear the difference? This is the T wrong, that is so, but this has some character. Beautiful chord. Oh, the C must be difficult. That's not too bad. Let me check my tempo here on my phone because I can tap on the app. Tap on the app. I think I am rather close now to Moschles. 92, I see. Yeah, it's 92, 96 or something. It's always difficult to have it exactly, but it's in the range. It's okay. I've not increased the tempo so much that I go to that I arrived at Czerny's tempo of 104. I'm not going to try it. Yeah, it might interest you to try this. Maybe later. I would like to have this tempo a little bit in my head now. No dynamic indications here, which is great. Now I love, of course, when Mozart or Haydn also has some sonatas that he just published without giving dynamic indications, which makes it, of course, wonderful to play because you can follow whatever your thoughts are and change things. You can do that otherwise. Also, it's difficult, you know, if you have indications from Haydn or Mozart. Are you going to change those or not? It's difficult, but now here there are none, so we are free to do whatever we want. I don't think this music is written for the harpsichord, for instance. You can imagine you read that somewhere, but this is really far away from the language of a harpsichord. You can still play that though, and I know some people who do that very, very nice. But yeah, okay. So my voice is a little bit not what it should be. Anyway, I'm really happy to do this Mozart now. And next time we do the rondo, which, if I remember well, was for me the most difficult part on the clavichord. But we'll check the tempo then, because there are some tempo indications here. I'm not going to say what they are. It's for next time. I wrote those metronome marks, but when I played the piece in the past, I do that less and less, because I'm focusing now so much on the historical metronome numbers. But when I performed or played or prepared a piece, let's say before 2016, 15, and I felt the tempo was right, I would take my metronome app or metronome and just would indicate whatever tempo I was playing in. So whenever the things became more difficult, you know, you have those moments where you are doubting and things are not really working out, I could refer to what I've noted down back then. So it's, and certainly in the Mozart scores I have, there are still a lot of tempo indications which I now can compare to the metronome numbers by Moschles and Czerny. How cool is that? So if they're really off, you know that you did something else and that you change your mind, or you don't change your mind. It's up to you, you know. That's the great thing about this information. Applying this information, there's no right or wrong. If someone say, well, I don't like that tempo of Czerny and Moschles, even after trying months and months and months, that's no problem. We are in an era where we don't owe anything to those composers anymore. I mean, no one can require that from you. The funny thing though is that if you do try to come as close to those thoughts as possible, it's always an interpretation that, like, I hope I can say that for myself, that I at least try to implement as much information as we have objective information. Metronome number is an objective fact. There is nothing to interpret other than double beat or single beat. But the funny thing is, if you do that, you will receive the comments that you are not true to the composer and that you are, you know, yeah, let me not repeat the things that someone sometimes is written on my channel. But that's the strange thing of this time, and it's just a matter of mindset, I think. When we continue with this journey for a while, and maybe have the luck to involve some other people as well, and just produce a lot of recordings, a lot of, you know, videos on the tempo issue and on write a book of Lawrence, publish some things, maybe publishing the Chinese Simrock edition of Beethoven, because it's so hard to find, you cannot imagine how is that possible. I mean, so of course in the major libraries they will have that, but still need to ask for scans of, go to the libraries, make photos. I mean, how is it possible? Most important source for Beethoven perhaps. But that we publish those things, who knows what are the possibilities in the future. And then we will change what they call the overtone window, which is the framework in which people accept a discussion to be taken place. And I've read that somewhere, and it's so strong image. This Mr. Overton, he was an economist or a company leader, I don't know, but he made the claim that, and it's true, that you have a left and a right position and everything in between, and the most extreme and the most extreme on the right, those determine the conversation actually. And when I started, at least that's what I have the feeling, that when I started to come out on YouTube really with the idea of, listen, now it's serious, we're going to apply this double beat and see what happens, because I don't see another solution for the things I have been trying to solve for many years, that there was something, certainly on Facebook, that really aggressively towards the idea in itself. Even people were laughing with it, and out of fear, I think, if I reflect now, it's just a fear, because somewhere deep down, everybody who is thinking about this, or just seeing one of my videos, or one of the performances, must, for a tiny little second, think, this might be really true, you know? But then, of course, the conversation skips to what is normal, and that's the overtone window. And everything that falls out of the scope, out of this framework, is not really accepted in any world. But I see now, where people just at the beginning laughed at the double beat theory, and as a whole, the conversation is shifting. And it's amazing to see, if I talk to people that I personally would think they would never ever have seen one of my videos, or think about the issue publicly or even privately, that the conversation is shifting. Some will react still to the double beat theory as a whole, but now you see people saying, well, for the slow movements perhaps it's not true. Or, yeah, I like the performance, but the idea cannot be true. So it's not, you see it shifting, and that's so wonderful to see. And at the end, where we will end, I mean, maybe not in my lifetime, but who knows what will happen. This can develop really fast as well. It just needs this little fire. And it's wonderful. It's really wonderful to do that. And going back to an Adagio like this from Mozart, which is one of his most astonishing pieces that he wrote, this sonata is... The reason that I don't play it a lot is because you realize this is the last major piano work or keyboard work that Mozart wrote. How is it possible? He was 34 at the time. And it always hurts. I don't know, of course you know that he died at 36. I mean, he was 36 or just, I think. But still, it's hard to accept. But anyway, going back to an Adagio, applying that, what I've been working on now for 2 or 3 years, and it's opening a new world again. So, hope you like that. Having said all that, I hope you enjoyed this session. And next week, as if you're watching live now with the premiere, we will be in Germany with Lorenz Guardian, talking about the book, which is a much bigger project than we anticipated. Somewhere it is written in our heads, certainly in his. I have also a kind of idea, but we need to concretize, is that an English word? To become concrete and write the points down. So make an index, make a book so that it has major chapters, but in between explanation chapters to the major chapters, and also very practical chapters, so that you, if you're a musician, can grab the book from the shelf and just page through and find the information you're looking for. You want to have evidence, so to say, or the context is there. You want to go really deep in a difficult article, and you know he can write difficult articles. I can assure you that. They're there as well. You want to have sound examples. There are links in the book that will guide you to YouTube videos, etc., etc., so that it's a really compelling unity for more than just on a scholar level or academical level. So that's the meaning. It's somewhere there, but we need to concretize, and it's 600 kilometers that we live apart, and it will take some time. It will take my family, make a little bit of holiday out of that. We're always happy just to be together, so it doesn't matter where we are, but just we need to move to Germany. I will try and do my best to upload, to make the recording for the last part. Also this week, before we leave. Next week, I don't know really what happened with the YouTube schedule, you will see. Anyway, you know that we will be in Germany. As for now, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting the channel through Patreon, which is a website where people support the things creators do, like we have a wonderful community that is meeting actually once a month through a video call, and we have also email conversations. And I share things on Patreon that is difficult for me to share, difficult in the sense of format. Just Patreon allows to share more smaller things, but on the go, you know. So if that's something for you, we'd appreciate you check that out. And for now, thanks for watching, have a nice day, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.